Hello chess fans! Today I wanted to show you a game from a recent Rapid tournament I played. So just to put a note on my rating here, I had actually not played a Rapid tournament since about 2020, and thus my CFC Rapid rating was a lot lower than my CFC standard rating. And so in this tournament I managed to get all the top players, and as we can see here, I managed to score a nice game here. So I decided to start off the game with knight f3. And actually, usually, especially in these faster time controls, I like to go for e4 and my tricky repertoire. But actually, I had just shown my opponent right before the round what they were going to do against after e6, queen e2, and they found the best line, which pretty much no one knows. So I wasn't really trying to play that anymore, so I decided to go for knight f3. They went c5. And here, to be honest, I could go e4, but okay, I didn't really want to play an open Sicilian, and I played c4 over the board. I just thought, okay, we'd get some position that neither of us really know. He played g6, and here I decided to go e4, and yeah, here I wasn't really sure whether to go e4 or d4. It turns out to be pretty much the same. Just an important thing to note here is that if you go d4, I learned this after the game, here they have this move knight f6, preventing e4, and then after knight c3, they actually transpose to the Grunfeld. So if you're a Grunfeld player as black, and your opponent plays d4 first instead of e4, then you can transpose to a Grunfeld, but if not, you pretty much have to play the accelerated dragon. So he went for bishop g7. Here I went for d4. And okay, here I was just like, okay, we're in an e4 opening again. We're in the accelerated dragon, Moroxy bind. Like, I'm perfectly fine to play this. And I thought he was going to go c takes, in which case I would take with the knight. We'd play Moroxy bind. And actually, early in this tournament, I had another Moroxy bind, which I managed to win against a high-rated player as well. But here instead, he went for this move knight c6. And okay, at this point, he already spent like 4 minutes thinking. I have never seen knight f6, knight c6 before. And now I have to think. And I actually am pretty glad that I managed to find the best move. I think my opponent here said they were expecting this move bishop e3, but here I was worried about queen b6. And then after the game we discussed, like, here, I think we said that if takes here, knight b5 was winning. And so then if takes, if I go knight takes, now, okay, he wins a piece, so he can't do that. So yeah, takes, yeah, knight d5, queen takes b2, rook b1. We saw this, it gets really complicated. Now this position apparently should just be a draw after like queen takes e2, like here or something, or apparently the queen's getting trapped. Okay, very, very difficult to see. Okay, but actually instead of queen b6, apparently the engine says that queen a5 is just winning. After here, you can go knight f6. There's no way to defend this pawn. For example, if bishop d3, then, okay, knight g4 for one. And then if a move like knight d2 on pinning, then, okay, there's at least here, right? Or then we have knight b3. Okay, now you can take, and then go for this fork. So yeah, that would also be winning. That's what my opponent told me they expected. And now if I go d5, which is the other move I was considering, they have this move knight d4, and I really, really do not like my position here. For example, after takes, the engine really, really likes white, but I just don't understand. I don't really think we're picking up this pawn ever, and even if we are, it's going to take a lot of time, and I felt like black has enough counterplay. I'm not a huge fan of this. So instead, I decided to go for this move d takes c4. And the idea was, okay, we're going to get a Moroxy bind with your queen on c5. Maybe that gains me an extra tempo with my bishop on e3. And actually, this turns out to be the best move. So he went queen a5, I went bishop d2. I felt like it was the only move. Queen c5, now I go knight c3, obviously, because my pawn was hanging. Now he goes knight f6, and okay, here I thought I have a reasonable position. His queen's on c5, maybe it can be hit by tempos like this. So I went bishop e2. He went for d6, and here I actually sort of regret my decision here. I think I made a bad move. I pretty much played castles like pretty much instantly, and I just expected him to castle, but here I think I should have really considered this move h3. And then this bishop just has a really, really tough time developing. And important to know that if bishop e6, I can actually go b3 now that my knight is just fully defended. And my rook is also defended, so there's no knight takes e4 takes, because after takes, I could take with my queen. So yeah, I really should have gone h3, but instead, okay, I went castles, he went bishop g4, and during the game, I was actually very pessimistic here. I thought that I already messed up. So at this point, I thought I was probably better, but then at this point, I thought, okay, I've messed up. Apparently, it's still quite good for me. So I went rook c1, most natural move, queen b6. Okay, now I go b3, most natural move to defend my pawn. And my setup is pretty harmonious, but castles, h3, takes. Yeah, here I thought, usually in the Moroxy bind, what happens to black is they have sort of a space deficit. Thus, if you keep all the material on the board, it's like, where do I really put my pieces? Like, does the bishop, usually the bishop goes to d7, the knight comes to e5, then the bishop comes to c6. But the bishop on c6 is horrible if my pawn goes to f3. And now I was also thinking that my pawn on h3 looks a little bit weird. So, okay, practically the engine still really likes, white here. And actually, for instance, I wonder why my opponent didn't play knight d4, for example. yeah, this is, I don't think we didn't discuss this at the game at all, but okay. This also looks like a reasonable move, and then this position just looks around equal. Maybe my opponent didn't want to trade pieces down and make it closer to a draw. They wanted to keep some imbalance in the game. So they went for rook fc8, which I thought was a very, very natural move. Here I went bishop e3, getting my free tempo. He went queen a5, now I go queen d2. Okay, this is my sort of natural development plan. And now he doesn't have any knight d4 ideas anymore, and he went a6. And here I made what is probably the first large mistake of the game. Like, after this point, I think both sides have played pretty reasonably. Knight c6 is a mistake. Not a mistake, it's a little bit of inaccuracy, but honestly, that's just an opening choice. He decided to play the modern instead of the Maroczy bind. But we got a very similar position to the Maroczy bind. But, okay, that being said, I don't think either of us made any big mistakes. But here, I think I made a very bad move. Here, I should probably go for this move, rook fd1, which looks very natural, just completing development. But I was really worried about b5. Now, if you don't really see what to do on b5, for example, here, okay, this is a possible line, and then e5. Apparently, this is what I'm supposed to do, just sack a pawn for what looks to me to be like not a very justified reason. But here, I think there's an easy line with this move c5. And here, I don't think black has actually a good move. For example, if black takes, then we have e5. Notice the knight can't take because it's pinned. And if knight e5, at least we have knight d5. Maybe threatening some sort of threatening the queen, but also threatening the pawn on c5 and this on e7, and apparently here white's collapsing. Not to mention you could also go for this move e6, and then if they go f5, then knight d5 is even more powerful because now they can't bring their king in. And this looks very clear to me. So I just completely missed c5, and I think c5 is very much the human move. So instead I went bishop e2. My idea was I'm stopping b5, and then my opponent played b5, and I was just looking at the board. I was like, yeah, I just completely underestimated that move. Like, I didn't fully miss b5. I just thought, I just played bishop e2 just instinctively thinking that I was preventing b5. And then, okay, while my opponent started thinking, and then I realized, okay, he has b5. And now if I take, I didn't take in the game, but if I were to take, and take, for example, I think he has knight takes e4. And now the knight's overloaded, and after knight takes here, okay, I'm probably still better here, but I didn't really like how his bishop is so monstrous. And okay, my center's gone, and these pawns might be weak. He might just have like a Benko Gambit type position where he's not even down a pawn. So I just didn't really like this at all. Apparently, again, the engine says this is a good position for white, but okay, this is a little bit of a dirty engine move. So instead I went f3, defending my pawn, which is also a good move. And here I was really, really worried about him playing the move b4. I thought I was actually just worse. I thought I'd already not only squandered my advantage completely with this bishop e2 move, but also just f3 and h3 didn't look good. But the problem with b4, and it's actually, my opponent actually ended up playing the best move. They played, rook ab8, which is the best move. So I'm not sure my opponent saw this. We didn't discuss it. But after b4, apparently here after knight d5, what I was worried about is this move knight d7. Then I thought here I'm just much worse because he's getting a knight to c5. For example, if I go here, maybe he can go for like e6 and, okay, knight f4, and then, okay, wait, maybe it's not so clear. Maybe though he has bishop here, and if I take here, he has some counterplay, weak squares, or he could go here, takes, and now the queen's trapped. If queen c5, I could just take here. So there's lots of threats here, but also just a simple knight c5. I thought that he has dark square domination. But apparently here I have this stupid move c5. Now, if takes here, I have knight takes, and then discovery on the knight. But after knight takes c5, bishop g5 is apparently like plus 0.8 for white after here, and rook fd1. Okay, you sack a pawn for like pretty much no reason, and you're winning. Like, this is the classic thing that the engine says. So I didn't see any of this. To be honest, I think I was just planning to go here, and then after knight c5, I thought he's just positionally better because my bishop's horrible. And yeah, you really shouldn't allow a pawn to get to b4, but instead, okay, he went rook ab8, probably maybe seeing that line with bishop g5, or, you know, evaluating it as, like, it's hard to win that position with b4 and knight c5 because there's no real breaks. You have to move your queen away, go a4, a5, maybe b4 pawn becomes weak. So maybe rook b8 is more ambitious. But here I went rook d1, just developing my final piece and improving. He went knight d7 now, and now this sort of relinquishes control of the d5 square, so I'm able to go for takes. Notice if I go here right away, again, he has b5, and so I didn't want to allow b4 at this point. Again, I think I allowed b4 here, but now it's a little bit different, because if he goes here, I think now I have this. Sorry, I have this. And queen takes d6. Okay, but it doesn't work. Knight e6. Oh yeah, I guess he's winning a2. Yeah, I didn't even see this, actually. But yeah, I remember I had some sort of tactic here, which was why it was not good here. So yeah, I actually just missed that too, that I didn't have b4 here. But Okay, he went knight d7. I decided to go for c takes b5. Now it takes, and now knight d5, and now there's no b4 because I have rook takes c6 takes here. Now that the c file is open, so yeah, instead after knight d5 he went queen d8. He could also take here, but after that point he's just positionally worse. I think after rook takes d2, rook c6, like position just bad for black. So he went queen d8. I went rook c2, developing here b4, and actually here b4 is just a huge blunder. It looks very natural because you want to bring the queen in. Also, you want to go e6 and maybe the knight's trapped, or he has to go to a bad square f4. But actually, this move b4 blunders the game, and take a few seconds to see if you can find it. I actually completely missed it. Like, I didn't see it at all, and I think this is just mutual blindness because you just trust your opponent. Also, I think both of us were quite low on time here. I think I was probably around 7 minutes, and my opponent was around probably like 4 or something like that. Like, so we didn't have that much time, and it was like a 20 plus 5 game, I think so, something like that, or 20 plus 10. Here I just had this move bishop a6 trapping the rook, and the good thing about this is I get rid of this bad bishop. This bishop is just horrible. All my pawns are on light squares. I want to keep this dark square bishop, so if I'm able to get rid of this bishop for a rook, it's good for me. But instead of that, I run rook c1, which is my whole idea. Now I'm threatening to take this, and so the only move I thought was a knight c5, and here I ended up blundering the game. I went for bishop takes c5, which is a huge blunder, an absolutely huge blunder. Here I have a decisive advantage again with this move bishop a6. Now it looks to not make sense because of then he takes, but here I take here, and after take here, for example, if he goes here, I again have this familiar move bishop here, which just wins the game, or not wins the game. White should just be like plus 1.5 here. Okay, difficult to see. Okay, but instead of that, I went for the most natural continuation, which is takes. Now bishop a6. The rook's trapped, and I'm winning the exchange. And here, I think after the game, my opponent decided to go for this move knight d4, which is a huge blunder, which gives me all the advantage back. But I think after the game we discussed that bishop d4, king h1, and e6 or something like this would have given them full compensation after takes. For example, bishop a6, takes. We were talking about this type of position where the pawn's defended, the knight comes to e5, the queen can come to h4. And actually this position is equal, but I think I prefer black here because, okay, white has no chances of winning. Once there's a knight on e5, like, I pretty much have no chances of doing anything, and there's a lot of potential for an attack, and I've actually lost many games like this online. But instead my opponent went for knight d4, which I was really happy to see, because now after bishop takes c8, takes here, I have rook takes c5, takes, and here my opponent was counting on this move e6. Idea being, okay, if I move my knight, then knight f3 comes, I lose my queen. And, what else can I do? If I go here, I guess I lose my knight. Okay, at least even in this position, actually, I'm just up 2 pawns, so I'm not sure if this is what my opponent saw, but here I played the move knight e7. Maybe I should have got you to pause the video, but okay, I played the move knight e7. Here my opponent resigned. Reason being that if he takes here, then I go rook c8. The only way to block is bishop f8, and then I take here. I'm up the exchange and a pawn. And if he goes king f8, then I go rook here, and after takes, he will be down 2 pawns and a queen for a bishop and a knight. And so I actually managed to win this game. So after knight e7, he resigned the game. I think it's a little bit premature. Like, I think he should have probably gone check here, bishop f8, and queen takes d5. But I think, honestly, it is quite a reasonable resign. But, okay, again, I still think maybe he could play on this. There's a chance, especially with maybe we both have 7 minutes. Okay, who knows? Maybe my opponent just didn't want to play the game anymore. But, okay, yeah, that was the game over. Here, I actually had this move, rook c8, which just wins even quicker, because now I just actually keep a full knight. And in this position, I think my opponent would be fully justified in resigning. He's just down a full queen. So, yeah, that would have been way better. Yeah, and here they don't have any other options because they're just going to lose. So, yeah, that's what my opponent missed from afar. And I'm trying to remember one more thing. Oh, yeah, here I think my opponent was talking about how... Yeah, they wanted to go knights... No, they wanted to go rook c2, but they missed knight f6. Yes, this was it. They wanted to go knight takes c2, and then if rook takes c2, now their idea was to go for... Okay, they can take here for 1. But also for 2, maybe they can just go e6, which then the knight hangs, and... Okay, when the knight moves or something, bishop d4 should be about equal. So this is what they told me, but then they just missed that after knight takes c2. that I had knight f6. And actually, I also missed this. Like, I was planning to go rook takes c2, but I think if we got to this position, I probably would have seen knight f6 is just winning. But yeah, that was the end of the game. So yeah, I managed to win this rapid game. Now, actually, in the classical, I might show this game next week. I actually did lose to the same opponent, and that game was really crazy. So I think it was a very nice game. But yeah, this turned out to be my highest rated over the board victory. Now, I don't really feel like it is because, okay, it's just a rapid game, and in rapid, at least, you guys have seen on the channel, we've beaten many IMs here and many GMs even. So it doesn't really feel as the same as, you know, if it was in a classical game when it's a lot more serious. But okay, still, I think that, okay, this is the first time I played an IM over the board and actually managed to come away with the game with a win. So I think that it's a good milestone to have. And actually, in this tournament, you might see, okay, my rating is 1875. My slow rating is like 2270. This is actually my rating before the tournament and my performance and then my new rating. So I actually gained around 300-ish points from this tournament. So, okay, clearly, I mean, this rating actually just doesn't matter because of the fact that it's rapid. It's a rapid CFC rating, which, okay, it doesn't get you any titles. It doesn't get you anything. It just, okay, it just feels nice. I lost maybe 10 CFC rating points from the classical portion of this tournament, which, okay, we're going to see recaps in the future. But, okay, at least felt nice to have my highest ever rating performance come in a rapid tournament that didn't really mean much. Okay, feels a little bit good, but okay, yeah, this game was a really nice game. I thought I'd show it to you guys. And let me know if you guys want to see my other classical game against this player from the classical section of this tournament. So with that said, then I'll see you guys in the next video.